We are live. And hello, everyone. Welcome to another expert session. Today, I have the honor to be joined by Marva Khalaf, with over 20 years of experience in business strategy, brand building, and marketing. Marva Khalaf is the co founder and CEO of Rubicon BPE, where she helps businesses scale through strategic innovation and project management. So, before founding Rubicon, she spent 16 years at Minlo, one of Egypt's leading consumer goods company, where she played a role in revitalizing brands like, forgive me for my accent, Kodair and Tank. And as strategic innovations and research head, she led consumer insights, brand communication, and product development, shaping market trends and driving industry growth. Um, Now, through Rubicon, Marva focuses on empowering SMEs and scale ups in Egypt, helping them bridge the gap between strategy and execution. She believes in the power of innovation, adaptability, and generational collaboration to build businesses that thrive in a fast changing landscape. The session is proudly supported by AirMeet, our trusted partner, in bringing together business leaders and industry experts for meaningful discussions. So, Marva, I always start our conversations with a sort of a controversial question. And for you, my controversial question is, given your extensive experience in corporate strategy, do you believe that the traditional Egyptian business model is fundamentally flawed and holding back SMEs from truly scaling? How has this influenced your approach at Rubicon BPE?
Well, that's an interesting question. But first of all, thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm really thrilled and excited to be part of this great community.
Thank you.
It's all about change and growth and evolving, and that's like in the core of our values here. And thank you for this very challenging question, actually, because Egypt is always on the controversial map. Okay, so how are businesses growing? Should investment actually be coming in or in exiting or scaling? Um, we actually have a very dynamic ecosystem, as I always say here. In the past, we have been through economical and political challenges from a very big level, but recently there has been some very serious and uh, really tangible improvements when it comes to the structural reforms in terms of the economical one and also the political stability. So these are usually the two pillars that pave the way. How are investments going? How are growth? Where are the growth stages for the companies? And SMEs always ask themselves, okay, where should we go from here? The past 2 to 3 years are on the better side. We have been seeing a lot of SMEs actually changing and taking leaps forward in terms of growth, taking advantage from the reforms that have been happening. The export markets are opening big time for Egyptian local brands. So that's another leap that a lot of companies want and are taking advantage of. So, to answer your question, we are on the improved way of actually scaling business to a healthier stage.
Mhm. No, amazing, and I thank you for that. I believe so much in exploring opportunities in new markets. It's like playing war. I'm from Brazil, and everyone is looking at traditional markets like, oh, the UK, the US, and but the world is so big and we are so ignorant, right? So my role at Evolve is, because I've been doing international expansion for such a long time, is number one to sort of bring more knowledge about new regions, because I think we can, is through education, in that sense that we can open up the eyes of everyone, right? In a community, it doesn't have to be millions of people, but a small group of people that can make a difference, and then knowledge, relationships, and then I think with those things we can move mountains. And so I'm really, really excited. I told you, like, I played squash for a long time. The community, the squash community in Egypt is massive. You produce the pipeline of players. It's incredible. The work that happened in Egypt is incredible in terms of producing amazing talent, and a lot of the talent goes is exported. Egyptian talent, I know they go to the US and so on. So with that said, we're not gonna talk about sports, um, but we're gonna talk about your career and what led you to do what you're doing today. So perhaps we can start from the beginning. I always think that the origin story tell us a lot about why we do things that we do today, you know, where we are. So yeah, you had a very impressive career in business and brand strategy. So what were some of the defining moments that shaped your journey? Can you tell us uh, a bit of your career and some of the moments that you believe that shaped your journey?
Of course, I'd love that. But first of all, let me tell you a little bit about myself first, because I think it plays a big role of how my passion and current perspective and philosophy for SMEs, especially in Egypt, actually works out. So I've been born in Egypt, but raised internationally. And I actually came and settled in Egypt when I was only 19. So for
Mhm.
me, it was getting to know Egypt and the Egyptians and the whole culture at a pretty later age with no background whatsoever. When I graduated from college, I started working at a small family business. So, and this is actually literally where I fell in love with SMEs. Um, the beauty of seeing a gap and where your knowledge and background actually comes to fill in was the foundation of my philosophy of, okay, actually I do want to give back to my community and to my country, and therefore in the business world through the SMEs that I see were struggling. They needed a little bit more knowledge. The whole trend at the time was, okay, let's go and work with the multinational big names here in Egypt. And I made a concrete decision. Actually, I want to go and work only for SMEs. With my knowledge and exposure and the international background that I have, I said, okay, this is actually what I do want to do. So it started off first with a little company that called Delta Aromatic. It was all about importation for raw ingredients. We used to manufacture flavors and fragrances at the time, and there was some huge scaling on that level within 2 years in terms of products and client expansion. Then I went on to moving to a B2B, also SME company, where it was about plastic manufacturing. We had clients where we improved their plastic packaging for local cosmetic projects. My role was actually business development at the time. And a good 10 years ago, there were not so many um, cosmetics or local cosmetic manufacturing brands that would compete with the big multinational names. So one of the really huge projects that we did, and actually I see the packaging right now, that we scaled the portfolio of the plastic packaging for the company threefold in 4 years. Um, and the interesting part that it was an end-to-end project, as I usually like to do them or take them at hand. We actually sit with the consumers, we sit with the manufacturers, check what they actually are looking for in a plastic package in terms of design, how creative it should be, the cost, of course. And we go through the full manufacturing process with the different SMEs then when it comes to outsourcing or actually manufacturing a certain product there. And it's pretty interesting that after 10 years, maybe, or 15 now, I could see some of the old packages still being used in more creative ways that we actually did the designs for. So that was maybe the first time that I said, okay, doing business for SMEs where you can actually see a product competing with a multinational brand or um, that is actually evolving and changing does make a difference. There's something very rewarding about that uh, for me personally when I just see the product standing there, uh, making a statement on shelf, may it be a consumer product or a B2B product. Moving on, then I moved to a consumer products company where I was responsible for two major brands there. And if you tell me, okay, which one was again a milestone, the Tank or the Colder brand, as we um, were actually it was we were redoing everything at the time for that company. So let me start with the Tank story again. Um, the Tank brand at the time used to manufacture water filters, which was a very um, controversial product for the Egyptian market. So everybody just used to drink water from the tap. Bottled water was a very small segment. So again, for a corporate that wants to grow a domestic filters market, it was very, very challenging. But again, back to fundamentals, the way we did it, we actually talked to the consumers, got the insights. Um, the insights were strategized into a very big plan and then to a very big journey where we created, designed new products from scratch. We actually tackled the barriers consumer had why not to use a water filter. Um, and we literally changed the whole norm of the industry. The whole market at the time was very fragmented. Route to market strategies were put, new products were designed, product innovation from scratch using our own know-how, definitely partnering up with the best in class when it comes to technology based. And we have a very different portfolio now serving Egyptians when it comes to their water and how clean and pure their water is. So, an interesting number, within 15 years, the market penetration of water filters started off at 2%, and it is around 22% right now from the Tank brand that we actually built together. So, this is one of the most interesting stories that I've worked on.
Mhm.
Because the journey in between, I mean, now it's like a summarized version of what happened, because at the end the results are all that matters, but how things were done in this very long journey to put actually a brand from scratch with very little market penetration, with very low awareness, reaching being top in the consumer's mind right now, with top awareness, with innovations, with totally different technologies that are actually second to none.
Mhm.
It's usually a very proud moment when I can actually see these strategies crystallize in real products and changing people's lives. It's just, for me, there's nothing more rewarding than that.
No, it's amazing. I really like the topic around category creation. Um, there's a guy I highly recommend if you don't know him. His name is Christopher Lockhead. It's one of the mentors I adopted on that topic of category creation, and really talks about being an evangelist when you're creating a category. So, for example, there's uh, people used to do things in a certain way in Egypt, like drinking water, and then there's the new way, right? And when you're trying to build a category, it's really hard because, for example, in our case, Gustavo and I always talk about entrepreneurship as you have a certain territory that you understand, but you don't have the map. You know, understanding how you're gonna how the pieces are gonna come together, but you do understand. In our case, for example, we do understand. We were having a conversation about Beauty Evolve yesterday. We have Dalia here. She's amazing. You know, she's been instrumental for us, and also one of the people pushing us, like, hey guys, you should charge for this, and she helped us with market research. But you have some key people in that journey that help you shape uh, the bigger picture, right?
Yes.
Because you can't talk to everyone, but you talk to at least the most engaged people, or those who believe in a certain vision and in a certain way that you have to drive the project. And they are so important. And so I'm curious, in that journey of category creation and other projects as well. How do you go about that? Like because I believe that those initial experiences, they are now probably very important for the companies you're supporting in the way that they're growing beyond Egypt. So I would love to hear your take on it.
Yes. Um, Very important question again. So, at the very start, you usually don't have so many people on your side. So, you do see a vision and you see something, but you need to go through the whole influence and persuasion part on who will be on your side and who will actually take this journey with you, especially that at the time, um, the resources were not as much and as big. So, and I take pride that I was hands on, for a very big chunk of the past 20 years. And I think this is where the experience actually lies. Um, when you start a journey like this, you actually need to give evidence to all your stakeholders. And that's usually my number one. I need to understand the stakeholders' triggers and barriers, what moves them, because my story will not be believable if it's actually shared in one single format. For me, it's
Yeah, I get it.
yeah, so it's like putting a puzzle together. At the end of the day, you just have this lovely little picture, but how
Mhm,
you put the pieces together, there are zillions of ways of actually doing this.
mhm,
And so being very transparent and being very resilient is the key to actually creating anything new, especially
mhm,
on our side of the world, where you have a lot of change going on, you have a lot of diversity going on, you have a lot of opinions. You don't have the same wavelength of knowledge sometimes in a lot of corporates, and this is one of the major givens. What I usually see that a lot of business people don't have the patience to communicate, and I do believe that you need to have solid human to human connections when it
mhm,
comes to building something new, because at the end of the day you're talking to a person, you're talking to a human who have certain beliefs and values. So to make something happen, they actually
mhm,
need to see it the way you see it. And I do believe a lot of people don't have the patience to go on and on about that. I always, when I talk to other stakeholders or even my peers or colleagues, um, they tell me, Marwa, they just don't want to do it. I am tired. This is just a waste of
mhm,
time.
mhm,
And I do believe that resilience and patience will give you the trust eventually to get the clearance, may it be from a board or from a management team or even from your subordinates to be on track. It just simply needs a very different way of human to human
mhm,
connection, resilience, to gain the trust. Once you
mhm,
have these, I think you have the first pillar of actually creating anything real and new.
mhm. I completely agree. We will discuss the topics like different generation, but I think there's one thing that came to mind while you were speaking, which is like, I think in every country, like this is probably true for the majority of countries. Like you have SMEs, payers, right? Small and medium-sized businesses. They're the actual companies, making the engine happen in every single country. And so when you look at corporations, you have companies that operate from quarter to quarter, and so they base their whole business in narratives and stocks market, and that's one play. On the other hand, you have the small and medium sized businesses where it's another velocity, it's another way of operating the business. And so I'm curious to listen to your views, because we spoke about we kind of touched this when we had Guilherme Acha that you attended to the session. He was talking about trust. Perhaps in Egypt, and I have no idea, and forgive me for my ignorance, if it's a religious aspect as well, uh, if people are more conservative and less risk taking, and if there's, tell me a little bit about the business culture in that sense, from in Egypt, in the SMEs, as you know, because you can talk from your experience and what you have seen so far.
Sure. Um, well, family businesses is a core definitely here in Egypt when it comes to family businesses that from very different sizes. You have the multi-billion enterprises, family
Mhm.
businesses that are up to 3 and 4 generations old, and you have other sectors that are smaller in scale, um, that are right now in the second to third generation. Um, Interestingly enough, here in Egypt, they do have most of, I don't want to call it power, but in a sense, it is power, because they have power in terms of credibility with their family history. They they have the funds. They do a lot of PR and NGO work. So the SME and the family businesses is a very big scale here in Egypt. And interestingly enough, it is also going through a change. Of course, not all of them, but many of them are actually witnessing the whole process of new generations taking over the business now. Um, I, for example, was working in, again, a family owned business, was working with the second generation, and the third generation will be taking over very soon now. I mean, that was where I used to work until I started Rubicon. Um, and right now, with my capacity at Rubicon, most of my clients are again family businesses where the second generation actually wants to lead the business or engage the third generation with them. Um, there is no one concrete challenge that we see. We see so many challenges every single day when it comes to this aspect, because it's not only the generational differences that the whole world knows now as Gen Z is entering the workforce and the Gen X's are actually letting go of some of their responsibilities, but the whole aspect of actually rectifying a whole new ecosystem that would lead to a fourth and a fifth generation again, because the numbers always say family businesses, uh, they usually fail by the third generation. And this is a big part of what we come and help the corporates with. So I was telling you about the whole resilience and the trust part that we actually need to gain first in order to be trusted with the families, to go and talk to them, to start putting a strategy and to restructure how the things would move forward from that. Um, Again, answering to your questions on the SMEs platform and how it is, we do see a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity there now,
Hmm.
um, due to, again, several external factors. We do have some reforms that are putting a good pavement for products to actually be exported. So
Hmm.
a lot of local brands want to actually export. They're going through a huge learning phase, gaining knowledge through the new technologies, through everything that the regulators are putting new to the markets right now, and actually how to get the products out there. The devaluations that we have in Egypt is definitely putting another pressure to get more hard currency in. So it's always an objective for the SME that they want to scale their export businesses. And on the local level, definitely with the devaluation, people just, or consumers, they want better, cheaper Egyptian products. And there's a huge appetite for that now. And SMEs are simply much more equipped to scale that if they have the right qualities to actually bring products to the market in order to scale their business. So it is a very how do they say, it's a very rich field right now. um, Egypt and this part of the world is, of course, not as organized as Europe or America or Brazil. But in emerging countries, it's usually the randomness of it all that could keep people a little bit behind. So
Mm-hmm.
putting the discipline and to take the opportunities right now as the business world is opening up its doors in a very different way uh,
Mm-hmm.
is helping and putting a new torch for the SMEs as they're actually working their way through now.
Very good, very good. Marva, when is it that typically an SME or a scale up they look for your support? Is it to is it for funding? Is it for developing a new category as we're saying, and then they need someone yeah, someone to help them. And I'm curious also about the because you're probably a very good translator. you know uh, between generations. So there's not so much what do you call in English sizzle, right? There's a little bit, right? But
Yes, yes, that's true. Because speaking on the translator part, this is usually part of my job. They come in when they actually need to restructure and re-strategize, and if they see they're at the halt right now and they want to move forward and they don't know how. And I do believe that how we actually help them do business is our little edge here at Rubicon,
Mhm,
that we take very good care on how things are done. I mean,
mhm,
you could just best practices and going by the book. I mean, we all know the whole pillars and the process and everything, but how we actually um, do it, I've seen over the past 20 years that usually this is where the challenge is. It's the make or break on how to grow from one stage to another. This is actually the hardest part. And many business leaders or seniors usually don't want to put a lot of effort in that part. I come from a very different school that actually this is the make or break part, how we do things and how I enable you to do things with your team. And the whole fact that you will be doing the difference. We don't enforce. I mean, a lot of um, firms just go to a client and give them a plan and, okay, go and execute. So we do it differently. We actually team up with them in terms of a project management, and we become partners at that certain stage of their growth stage or certain time period that they're in. And we work hand in hand, enabling them on how to do the different growth stages that they're in. So this is usually how it works, or how we usually do it. And we're taking pride that's how we gain the trust and how we actually see results at the end of the day. um, we can't forget that the corporate and the company is going through a vulnerability stage at the time. And a lot of that is usually overseen from certain key people. Again, like I tell you, human to human connection is core on how we do things, because it is a human at the end behind that chair and behind that title. It is a human behind the brand or his corporate or the family business. So if I don't see their psyche on how they're moving from one stage to another, it actually never works. So it's an important aspect to take it in consideration and to know that there is no such thing that one size fits all. So it's usually very
Mm-hmm.
custom made and very tailor made on um, what is the business objective exactly, and to translate how you say that, what they want to do. Because usually SMEs and the older generations, they don't really know how to articulate what they want or what they need or where the problem is. So it takes some meticulous listening and how to give the feedback to actually come up with the objective, put a strategy for it, do some restructuring if needed, and then start doing the plan to make sure that they reach their objective for the next growth stage.
Mm-hmm. And well, and very very interesting. When you speak about growth stage, are we typically looking at? Um, uh, I'm curious about. So, is it exports? It's part of, or export is more like on a tactical level that company are looking. Can you be a bit more
Most
perhaps
of
granular?
them, yeah, most of them do the growth in terms of expansions, that they
Mhm.
need to expand into a very different product line,
Got
uh,
it.
or into a very different segment.
Hmm.
So most of them come at this level. Many are usually at a hold where it comes to, all right, our resources, the return on investment is not that high, so they would need restructuring or how to redo things internally,
Hmm.
is usually also one of the most or biggest aspect that we usually see with firms. And of course, right now we're also seeing um, more efficiencies that need to be done with digitalization. A lot of SMEs are not digital yet here in Egypt. So, how to digitalize their process and their processes, and actually how to take advantage of that, is also a very big part of what we've been seeing here.
Very interesting. I had some data that I found about Dalia actually shared the other day. So let me see what I found here, and let's see if I can get my next question. Um, 72% of Egypt's population is online. That means 82 million users. 45 million people actively using social media. Half, let's say. Egyptians spend an average of 2.3 hours daily on social platforms. And this is interesting. Not sure if it's going to be part of our conversation, but startups in Egypt raised 329 millions in 2024, despite global funding slowdowns, which means VCs are probably looking at new regions for growth and so on. But given the map here, so 45 million people actively using social media. That's half of the number, 72% of Egypt's population online. Um, I think the population is 110 million. Is that correct?
Yes, formally, yes.
Yeah. So
We are a little bit more than that.
so Brazil, we are 200 and then you can put it in the comment. I don't remember 210 to the billions out there, but it's a lot of people in Egypt. A lot, right? Uh,
Yes.
yeah, 210. Thanks, Gustavo. We are 210. Which is very interesting because uh, Brazil is a very peculiar case. We have typically two phones per person.
Okay.
We're super active on social media, and I like it. I like looking at the how digital we are in that sense because you can create some interesting curves in terms of what could or can happen in the country with new digital products and so on. So probably a lot of this digital behavior uh, in Egypt is coming from a younger generation, maybe millennials using Facebook. Which, if I ask my daughters what Facebook is, they laugh. They have no idea. So, what would you say? Because I want to explore a bit before we ask the questions. We open for questions. The the sort of clash of generations, like because it's impossible. Like if you're a youngster now, you will be on TikTok, you will be impacted by this There's an opportunity there. There's TikTok shop. There's a lot happening. So we don't need to go into the specifics of social, but more like the digital behavior and how that is sort of shaping behavior, potentially causing a distress in the older generations as well. But so tell me about that. Uh,
Well, I think that Egypt, like a lot of emerging markets, we actually have the gap between generations that is caused by digital, definitely. The
mhm.
um, the scope is actually also very interesting. That, like you say, in Brazil, you have like two phones for one uh, consumer or one person.
Yeah.
We have that here as well. You could have several phones for
Mhm.
um, one person. It's
Mhm.
something that we can actually see here a lot. But interestingly enough, the demographics play a very interesting role here. Um, with 110 million people, if we actually select the households that are above poverty line, they stand at around 12 million households, with an
Mhm.
average of a household being 4 members right now, as of the last report. So that's still a significant amount of people if you take that percentage also on actually the social and how they actually consume their digital platforms.
Mhm.
Um, how this actually resonate in our business world, it's right now I do uh, use the worldwide a lot in the way I actually explain it, because every user is using it in a very different format. The Gen Z, which is around 40% in Egypt, use it for everything, literally everything. I mean, from communication to shopping to exploring to knowledge base. So they're using it very differently, but they're still not consuming with it as much. Their buying power in terms of e-commerce or to buy online is not as huge, of course, as
Mhm.
the millennials or the X's, simply because their income is still not very high. I mean, they're just entered the workforce, so if they're just buying small things for their personal use, that's around it. That's about it. So when it comes to behavior, it's more of just consuming social, consuming data, being on social media. The purchase itself, if I actually take that number demographically, the X's and the Y's are a good 14 and I think are 30% or 25% together here in Egypt. And of course, their literacy of using phones is not as much. I mean, you typically in a household you could find a parent that would not like to buy, for example, anything on e-commerce. They still want to go down the store and pay with their credit card or cash, versus the younger person, the Gen X at home, would actually do the buying and everything, but they don't have the buying power yet. So for me, the map is growing, definitely, but it's still very random and wild. Like I tell you, the numbers are shocking, yes, but when you go down and really segment the behavior in the household on how everybody is using their phones and how they're consuming data and what they're actually doing on their platform, for me as a researcher and to understand more, that's the most important part. So who is actually using it for what, and what the consumption is really for.
Excellent. This has been amazing, Marva. Marva, good. I could be talking with you for like hours and hours. Um, but as always, I would love to have our members jumping on stage. I think Hawan or Dalia. I'm not sure. Let's see. Hawan for sure. Dalia, I asked her a question. She's gonna join us. But Gustavo, please. Yes, thank you.
I'm on stage. Okay. Well, Marva, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great session.
Thank
And I was making some notes while you were talking. I agree with you in many points that you said, like when we were talking about business and the human side. At the end of the day, we are all humans, so there. I totally agree with there are no B2B, are just H to H. So human to human are the real thing that really exists. And as you were talking about the changing of the generations, um, what really came to my mind was about the how how do you manage like these younger generations that I believe they have more energy, and usually younger people used to say, oh, my old folks don't know anything, so let's change everything, and like a more disruptive point of view. But the company only exists because the old ones did something, so they do have credit, right? So how do you manage? Of course, you have to evolve, as the community name say. So how do you manage this disruptive willing and the evolution? How to find a balance that are good for the companies?
Great question. So I usually have a simple approach coming from the whole philosophy of human to human communication. So once we enter a corporate and we are aligned that there is a change management and that there is a new generation coming over to take over, we actually split up conversations into two. It needs to happen that way because there is some detangling that usually um, takes place, as Carlos was saying, since we're the translators with those projects. So we do have very close human to human, heart to heart discussions with the first generation or the older generation at the time, um, because they have, other than the business itself and the numbers, and they're usually like I was saying, they have a certain vulnerability in them, and it's very important to understand that as we are um, making their business grow in a very different era. They usually don't have a lot of knowledge in certain aspects. So getting them into the mood that it's simply okay not to know, and that we will be growing in this together, because there's so much resistance usually when it comes especially to technology. um, so the delicate conversations are very very important on both sides, and with the younger generation at the time we also make them talk, we listen very carefully, we detangle and decode what is actually in the background in their minds, and then rationally we start putting it together. So where's the objective and where are the triggers and the barriers of the first, the second, and then we start putting a plan together. When they actually see that there's one objective, it's all about growing. The problem is how to grow. But at the end of the day, we take the vulnerability and we take the whole disruptive mindset and remind them again it's all very human what's happening here, because I mean I come from a very solid background that, like I was saying, it is everything is just back to us humans and how we take it. We tend to forget that as we do business it's just all about the numbers and how are we scaling, but at the very end there is a person that will actually make that decision. And if I don't descale that and detangle it with my clients, we won't get anywhere. We won't get anywhere genuine, at least. There will always be something in the background that is untouched. And I always make sure that everything is very transparently when we actually do the different conversations and we have everything in that bucket. We make sure that they're in a psychological state to go through that change. So using positive psychology is actually a very big part of that um, process that we put into our work. Um, and it takes a lot of patience. And you can usually never expect the next move or the next discussion or what actually happens in these closed doors and on those tables. So, always being very open minded and being very open to their vulnerability and make them talk is usually my main how to make this all happen, because this is the foundation of having the bucket ready for that next stage. I hope this answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that.
Next one, JJ. Thanks.
Hello there. Well, thank you for the absolutely amazing insight. I think for me personally, it was you did add great value. But my question comes, everybody talks about AI. It is a big boom at the moment. How do you see AI empowering or help small and medium business in Egypt, move forward in terms of having a positive impact in the economy, but also being more modern, or also helping and supporting the small business?
Thank you for your question. Um, Again, very insightful. I was just attending actually a seminar on AI and business because it is a very huge, big subject that everybody is, again, very vulnerable and very scared about, especially that a lot of things have to do with the regulators, etc. But let me just be more specific when it comes to SMEs. Like I was saying in the main session, digitalization is still being part of a lot of SMEs. So now they're like digitalizing, and now AI is taking over. So there's a bit of a gap that we are seeing now because they're a little bit behind when it comes to digitalizing their corporates. Um, definitely the younger generations will be the main catalyst to make this happen. We are starting to see some very good discussions when it comes to which tools to use for which decision making, especially. Um, because again, as AI is still learning with us and getting to know us in order to be able to help on a professional level, it's very important to start integrating it from the very start. Um, Definitely, it will help. It will help things be more efficient depending on which sector is using it and which function also will be using it. So, like everywhere in the world, I think it will be a huge plus. My takeout on AI in businesses is simply that use it, definitely start playing with it, start actually applying it, but you cannot, especially on our side of the world where the intellectual levels are not very deep. um, I am a little bit against to um, rely on it 100% when it comes to the knowledge base that actually I want to understand. You get my point? So if I'm a little bit not knowledgeable in one subject and I'm completely um, putting my trust into AI to make a decision or to help me find a piece of knowledge, which I'm a total zero at, then how am I actually verifying that it will be okay for me? So this is my advice usually for our side of the world, when the SMEs that still that you need to integrate it, but you need to verify and validate the information because you come from a certain level of knowledge base. So moving forward, yes, definitely it is helping, but how it's being used, we're being very careful on how they are using it and how they are making the machines learn with them as they go.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you, Marva. I think Gustavo is joining us. I have invited Mihaela. Not sure if Mihaela is able to join us today. She's also working in an AI company. Very interesting, by the way, what they're doing. Gustavo, you're welcome to join us. Yes, go ahead.
Uh, Hi, Marva.
Hi,
Thank you.
Gustavo.
It's been a great session. And in terms of international expansion, I would ask you, what do you see are the, I don't know, if the more common bottlenecks that companies from Egypt face when doing the international expansion? Is there something internal from them? It's like a matter of their own organization in terms of company organization as itself, or it's more like how to tap in to the new markets, how to understand the markets that they want to go. So, what what do you see in this type of uh, international expansion?
Great question, Gustavo. Thank you. What we've been seeing is, again, it's actually a little bit of everything, because as an SME wants to expand into new markets, they need to create the ecosystem that actually would help them to expand. So we always push them for market understanding. That's number one, because at the end of the day, they need to match a product or a service with a certain consumer that is beyond their current market. So it's all about understanding and creating the internal discipline to actually make this happen. And in SMEs, this is usually where the trigger is. So they sometimes oversee that part. Understanding and knowledge base is very, very important, and many SMEs don't have that part. They don't, for example, invest into research as much, and the whole knowledge base is done in a little bit non-structural ways. So when it comes to expansion, it's the number one push that we always give them. That's the discipline that you actually start need to build in your new ecosystem. Understand the market, know your knowledge, always be on top of your numbers and what's actually happening um, in these new markets and how you can compete, because the labor cost and there are so many other advantages here to create a product or a service to export outside of Egypt that we have a lot of privilege in. And the key that we always help our clients with is just to put the ecosystem together that would actually enable them to do that.
Great, great. Yeah, I see that when yes, we come from I come from Brazil, and what I can see is that you have companies coming from countries that are not already well established in terms of structure, like the U.S., Europe, mostly. You see you have a lot of competitive advantage in terms of people, I believe, in work culture itself. So you need to face a lot of things that companies uh, that are born in the US or in Europe, they're not used to. So they don't need to struggle with a lot of sometimes basic things that companies coming from Africa in general, and Latin America, and some countries of in Asia, they're not used to. And then when you go to this other competitive market, of course, these companies will have different type of, of, of challenges to face. But at the end of the day, I think these companies and the people that working there and are used to work with this type of companies, they have more. I think it's resilience would be a good word. So you know that you need to face a lot of challenges, and you need to find a way to to get out of that outside the box, let's say, because the system is not uh, uh, the system has not predicted that problem or that would happen, and you need to understand another way. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very insightful. Thanks.
All right. Well, I think we're reaching the end here, Marva. I was just pulling some data about Egypt mains exports. Perhaps this is something that we can summarize our conversation with. So I was just looking here, and this is ChatGPT, which means it's. I learned it's Microsoft, or until recently it was Microsoft. Now I don't think ChatGPT and Microsoft are together anymore. Have no idea. I have to look at credible data. But here we have the main exports: petroleum and natural gas, agricultural products, chemical and fertilizers, textile and apparel, electronics and machinery, gold and other minerals, pharma and medical supplies, and trade partners. Europe, being Italy, Spain, and Germany, are key buyers of Egyptian oil and gas and agricultural products. Middle East, so Saudi, UAE, Turkey, Asia, China, of course, and India. In the US, Egypt benefits from qualifying industrial zones agreement, which allows duty free. Yeah. So like Brazil, we it's very interesting, and something that I'm always like, we create we produce coffee, like um always the terrible coffee stays in Brazil, or we have to pay a really, really high premium for it. And then we always export the best, right? And I think, like, we always say that we have in Brazil we have low self-esteem, in the sense that, well, that there's that we are always exporting the best, but people also are not aware, or they are afraid of taking the first step of just creating. I'm just being very simplistic in the way of saying, if I'm gonna export coffee, I could just as well have a page in English and start selling directly to other markets. It's not that simple. Of course, there's some work there, but that happens a lot in the agribusiness in Brazil. So, for example, orange, we sell the orange and we rebuy the orange juice, and we pay triple, like, you
I
know
can relate to that. Yeah, I
uh-huh
can relate to that. Same
and,
here.
and
We have some.
okay, and so I believe that there's so many opportunities in that sense as well, right? For export businesses that could sell directly, like D2C, start selling directly to other businesses, or eventually other, yeah, to consumers and consumers marketplaces. Yeah, not sure if I think we both agree, and
Yeah,
Egypt is number.
definitely. Because we have the same thing here. I mean, sometimes, not sometimes, so many products are usually produced in certain specs, just 100% for export. And then here in Egypt, being an Egyptian wanting that great quality, uh,
Mhm.
we actually don't find it that easily. You have to re-buy it from, or re-export it again. So definitely.
Yeah, that's Dalia saying here. Egypt is number one exporter for frozen strawberries. Local
Yeah,
market sells the worst. Yeah, I
yeah.
think it's probably the
Very
same
true, Dalia.
worldwide.
Yeah.
All right, so this was amazing. Marva, thank you so
Thank
much for your time.
Thank you
I
for having
really,
me.
really enjoyed. No, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you. It's it's a pleasure to have you in our club. Yeah, if people want to know more about you, of course, we can always connect through the club, but we are also broadcasting this on LinkedIn, on our LinkedIn page, which, by the way, you're amazing comments there, also from when I announced that you were joining our community. So kudos to you, and it's amazing that you have built such a great career. So if people want to find you and your company, how can they find you?
Great, thank you, and thank you for having me. And I'm really excited to be part of this community. I think we have a lot to grow together.
I agree. Thank you. So Marva, just if people want to find you, LinkedIn would be the best way, and find your company as well.
Yes, definitely. Our website is still in the making, so hopefully within a couple of weeks, our website
Cool.
also will be out, and everything, all the contacts will be on there. But right now, LinkedIn is the best. Yes.
Awesome.
All
Thank you very
right.
much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Lovely day to all.